And just like the paper that makes physical cash, each individual piece can be used to represent something much more valuable than the Satoshi itself. In this way, we can use BSV as anything from a simple ticket or a coupon, right up to a bond or a banknote, or a constitution or a piece of legislation with the full weight of law, published in public with the digital signatures of the lawmakers who created it. BSV is a ledger usable by anyone, from an individual to a nation state, to a world body, to record, manage and communicate a registry of assets, resources and decisions. At ELAS, we use our proprietary tools to facilitate the creation of structured data and permission layers for the blockchain. We have a diverse array of tokens and token functionality and tools that allow unparalleled flexibility, scope, and scalability. Property records and asset management databases are just one aspect of what is possible. These can be implemented as a function of government or as private infrastructure, dependent on specific requirements. In many cases, the optimal path is to keep a portion of all data public as an anchor for the encrypted information. Our private ledger system allows you to create a tailored, flexible structure to allow for the most efficient breakdown and control of ownership rights. Many also don't realize that Bitcoin is built to leverage some of the most important features of the next generation internet protocol. ELAS understands this and have designed our systems to readily adapt as new IPv6 devices and transport protocols are deployed. To summarize, what we have built at ELAS is a technology layer that provides all of the tools needed to build your own ledger, within which you have total freedom to create structure, to set right permissions and read access. All of this is possible using the native features that are available to anybody using BSV today. It's important to remember that there are no limits in BSV, so design accordingly. The scripting language offers tremendous flexibility and potential. It is already feasible to manage large documents requiring thousands of separate signatures, to build large-scale content sharing networks, and to create cash systems with billions of daily transactions. Using ELAS with BSV, you really are ensuring that your business, your platform, your service is being set up for scale. For a nation, we can provide ideal ways to manage government services. The system can be structured to give the appropriate oversight in the right places. For enterprise, we can massively improve efficiency by making it possible to build systems and interfaces that operate in fundamentally new ways. There is no other network or system that exists today which has as much potential to change the way we do things for the better as BSV. Across every part of our daily lives, we have a new means to make things cheaper, faster, and more efficient, and more honest. And that's something that's missing. There are no limits to what is achievable, and ELAS stands ready to help you realize what you need. Please come and chat to Mo, Ethel, or myself about what we can do. I'm now going to hand over to our co-founder, Mohammed Jaber, who will take you through more of what's possible and our business offering.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. Yeah, nice to see everybody in Brisbane. I'm from Sydney, based there, and my name is Mohammed Jaybar, and I'm co-founder and Chief Operating Officer at ELAS. So ELAS is a digital consultancy focused on solving real-world problems that leverage off the world's most scalable network. But before we can even talk about the world's most scalable network, I want to take you back to the very beginning. When we started ELAS, we started with a simple philosophy, to start with the end in mind. And the first question we had to ask is, what is wrong with legacy technology? And in this context, legacy technology can mean like cloud service providers like AWS, or payment processors like MasterCard and PayPal, or even private blockchains that are essentially like private databases. So we asked ourselves these questions. We had to identify what the core issues were that are currently impacting the customer experience and adding friction. And this would be for entrepreneurs that are building their own applications right up until, all the users that are actually using that platform. So that was our driver, and these are the core things that we identified that were the problems and limitations with legacy financial systems that have been limiting business opportunities. So firstly, the information exchange and financial transactions rely entirely on third parties, and also there is poor data integrity. So these systems are inefficient, costly, and easily corruptible. Records can be altered fraudulently without any evidence left behind, and documents can be lost unintentionally due to negligence, hardware failure, or even fire. There's also weak security, so security breaches can happen as they're relying on a central point of failure. So that means that hackers, fraudsters, or even just corrupt officials can exploit these easily. And this leaves environments susceptible to both security vulnerabilities and also compliance for any remediation that follows. And obviously the low scalability aspect, which restricts many things, but in particular the microeconomy. So low scalability means that sub-dollar services are not feasible due to excessive fees that has limited functionality and business models. So then ultimately, now we started with the end in mind. Now we know that, this has completely impacted the experience of the customer and all users because of less functionality and not being able to think bigger about what is possible. So we had to evaluate this with some sort of metrics, from data and infrastructure costs to transaction costs and throughput to network availability and security. And just some examples. So like by leveraging off a public infrastructure like the Bsv network, essentially the costs to start are zero. There's no upfront cost to get started, and it's basically pay per activity usage from there on, and just building on top of that to be able to record that information and leverage the information off the ledger. And the costs as well, using the public ledger could cost as little as 1/10 of a cent for any transaction, and obviously that will decrease over time with scalability. And the transaction throughput, at the moment it's about 10,000 odd plus per second, which continues to increase over time, but there's really unbounded and infinite scalability. And obviously the network availability. So in traditional service agreements, there's a general acceptance that 2 to 3% downtime per year is standard. Whereas with Bitcoin, node operators can just come and go as needed. So the network availability is always going to be 99.99% always available, and it's got the track record to prove that. And the security, as mentioned before, legacy technology, even private blockchains, they have a central point of failure. So anything that gets any security breaches can happen as long, and as we've seen that with the big tech companies as well. It's even with the regulations that come out like GDPR, it's not enough of an incentive to deter, even if they're trying their very hardest, because of the technical limitations of having all information in one spot, so one access point, whereas in Bitcoin that is actually, not only is it unbreakable, but it is actually spread over across all the different private keys. So we use an example use case. So if there was a high velocity company, and there are those that exist today that would say have 10 million transactions per day, that would equate to $100,000 at least in running costs per day for that company. And if they were to use the Bsv blockchain, that equates to under $1,000 at the rate of 0.1%. So that continues to get cheaper. So now that I've given a bit of context about our thought process in getting to using the Bsv blockchain, as we are a software services company looking to solve problems, we could summarize that what we came to was that we needed a way for all users to leverage the power of the blockchain without needing to acquire, hold, or use Bitcoin. And when I say Bitcoin, you can think of like any kind of crypto. The kind of process involved in acquiring that is really a barrier to entry. And everyone talks about all the benefits, but really 99% of the people don't care. So what we've done is in this time, we've developed a framework to kind of help entrepreneurs and businesses out there who need to build an application or get their idea off the ground from scratch. We can support with the full service of platform development using our framework ELAS Plus. If you already have an existing platform, and you just wanted to be able to connect to the blockchain, we have APIs and tools available, what we call DAGDA, that we have, and all of this is possible using the infrastructure, which is already there, already available for everybody, is the Bsv blockchain. So the Bsv blockchain is obviously the global public ledger with no kind of restrictions on any transaction size, complexity, or quantity, and is the lowest cost blockchain in the world. So now that I've kind of established, the essence is trying to, building these platforms to connect to the blockchain. I just want to essentially what that means is that on the public blockchain, you can have you can create your own private ledger on that blockchain, on the public blockchain. So that means that any business can operate their new or existing platform directly between their device and the world's most scalable ledger with minimal overheads or intermediaries. So I'd like to demonstrate visually how this works step by step in the background. So in the first step, a one-time establishment action is performed, which determines the purpose and rules of that private ledger. This is done by the platform operator, who can be either one or multiple parties. Then the ledger itself is then created, and it will become the anchor to all future activity being performed by the platform operator. Within that ledger, you can also have nested subledgers with highly flexible structures. So an example of this is a nation. They can have constituent states, or for an organization, they can have different divisions. Within any part of the subledger, digital tokens, which we're probably all familiar with, can be created that can actually represent whatever is needed by the platform operator. This can be for a service, rights, or a digital representation of a physical object, or even fungible cash-like instruments. And finally, when digital tokens are issued from within a subledger, they can always be traced back to the ledger's anchor, which provides irrefutable proof of provenance back to the very issuance transaction of that private ledger. So just some examples. Obviously we do create platforms for clients, bespoke solutions for clients, but we've also got the ability to develop our own products, and for example, we've developed Baymail, which is like a peer-to-peer encrypted mail that has microtransactions attached to that kind of eliminates spam. Got Synovira, which is our federated productivity suite to manage your money and business affairs all on Bitcoin, which I'll talk more about later. And Rounddesk, which is like a professional networking tool similar to LinkedIn that has unique functionality using microtransactions. So with our framework as well, so we've built those in-house products, but we also really like to help all types of people, with their businesses. And what I've got up here is all of the clients that we've engaging with to date and presently, and it is a testament to the flexibility of our technology that we've been able to attract such a diverse range of customers, because through our engagements, our objective is always ensuring that we focus on the pain points that we've identified with legacy systems or processes, and then we design bespoke solutions that deliver transformative efficiency improvements. So with the examples that we've got here, I would like to show you how versatile our technology is across a variety of different use cases. So examples such as conducting a digital transformation of a nation state, Tuvalu saw the opportunity and engaged us to commence the design phase of the groundbreaking Tuvalu National Digital Ledger. Through many hours of workshops and interviews with the governments, banks, merchants, and residents of Tuvalu, we uncovered the key limitations today, and they form the specific requirements of the ledger design to fundamentally revise government services to be delivered without paper. So other use cases include the tokenization of gold on the blockchain to replicate the existing gold certificate process digitally, so with added functionality like staking, transparency, security, and fungibility like cash. With this technology, we've also been able to help companies that are in industries with outdated business models such as publishing houses to be able to monetize and access a whole new global reach of customers. So BuzzMint is one of our customers, and they're developing a platform to enable a simple way for brands to be able to create and distribute content on the blockchain with added utility that provides special access to content, art, events, and more. Even within the construction industry, one of our clients, Choi, is developing a first of its kind platform that enables a micro delivery service. So it connects 3 different types of users in an industry together and streamlines the ordering of materials on demand. And ultimately, the gap and in limitations in what was available in solutions in the market is what brought our client towards a solution on Bsv. With this technology, we've also been able to address the counterfeit problem for luxury consumer goods. Client Manufact is focused on solving the loss of funds to illegitimate markets whilst also increasing consumer confidence. So the merger of our ELAS Plus technology with existing technologies such as RFID not only minimizes disruption with existing business processes, but enhances it by providing functionality in new ways by linking digital and physical items together. It is even possible to identify global problems such as the identification of livestock in industries that are dealing with convoluted data structures that are neither indexed nor anchored to a unique digital object. Bloodstock has a vision for every horse to become a unique, dynamic digital object tied to lineage, with genealogy, medical history, and more that can be enriched with data by different stakeholders within the industry. So as mentioned before, we have also taken advantage of what's there and seen a gap in the market to develop an in-house product called Synovira. And Synovira is a federated productivity suite that combines collaborative multi-signature technology with an array of tools that allows you to manage your money and business affairs entirely on the Bitcoin network. Federated means that we can deploy it on your domain, which gives you full privacy, security, and control, and also have your own address PayMail extension that is also linked to your company. It's also a non-custodial wallet that allows you to have up to 10 parties attached to that account. We can also white label and modify it to handle any other requirements that your organization needs. So as of today, Synovira can be integrated with Microsoft Teams, and organizations can leverage a seamless experience of single sign-on with their company credentials to be able to do things like obviously countersign any documents or any other collaboration tasks that can happen within an organization. So since the release of Synovira, we have listened to the feedback of our customers and what they would like to see in future releases, and have developed an extensive roadmap that includes integrated on-chain document management with simple multi-signature workflow, the creation of invoices and delivery using BSV as a signature rails, spam-free email on-chain that provides a secure experience, calendar appointment and event scheduling on-chain, and full voice and video delivered securely over the BSV network. So back to the original driver of when we were kind of coming up with what will, the problems we're trying to solve and how we're going to do this, obviously with our framework, Elas Plus, and our tools, Dagda, to provide to users who have their existing platforms is, we wanted to have a way for all users to leverage the power of the blockchain without needing to acquire, hold, or use Bitcoin. In order to do this, we need to remove all complexity and barriers to entry faced by all types of users for them to be able to benefit from this revolutionary technology. So we do this actually because at Elas we have a unique proposition, is that we would actually provide a managed service on top of that to handle the supply of Bitcoin tokens needed for your business to use the public ledger. So obviously every activity and action is the right to, is attached a small fee that goes to the public ledger, but we will handle all that so in other words, that if it's not a requirement for you or your customers to actually have Bitcoin displayed on the platform, then it can be completely invisible in that experience. So we're using the Bitcoin network as the rails, and nobody really needs to know or acquire Bitcoin in order to benefit from that. So there's no problem that we can't solve using Bitcoin. We would love to hear about the problems you're trying to solve to help make Bitcoin work for you. So come and speak to us today. Thank you.
Any questions?
I'll say a little bit about the scalability, just while you're thinking up of questions. So we did, with the Anon survey tool, we did a stress test in the days where it was called BVote. It had a different name. We did a stress test to see if it could handle the population, the voting population of Australia. The voting population of Australia is about 17 million. We generated many millions of transactions, obviously not actual people kind of voting, but they were simulated, and they were published to the blockchain. Millions of votes, and we pretty much found that we could do the entire voting population of Australia within a single day, and that was before later enhancement requests, later enhancements to the Bsv blockchain. So it was capable then, it's capable now, and if you think about it, 17 million transactions when it costs 1/1000th of a cent per transaction. That costs a couple $100 at most. That's a conservative figure too. So really try to imagine that on any other blockchain. If you want to know why I use BSV, that's a bloody good reason. It's hard to imagine something like that happening on another blockchain, because most blockchains, with demand and usage, the price of transaction goes up. So if you're doing 17 million transactions in one day, chances are you're going to reach $300 per transaction and higher. And do the math on how much that's going to cost for 17 million.
Just a little bit on scaling as well. So a bit of a funny story. After the Bitcoin Cash split, we had another hash war where Bitcoin Cash separated and the Bitcoin SV network kind of went on its own. And I was actually in London at that time, and a friend of mine named Eston and I worked together to create a robot to stress test the network. And Eston is a pretty great engineer, and he really over-engineered this thing up the wazoo. Like, he had little bots all over the world that could ping the network with thousands of transactions every second. And so after the split had taken place, we began blasting the network, and we hit it with 24 million transactions over about 6 hours, which we thought was great and heaps of fun and a massive gas. But really what happened is the entire network fell over. Every single service, wallet, website attached to the network stopped working. And so there's a cautionary tale in that, which is that while scale is possible, it's actually quite hard. You know, we stand up here and say, yeah, we can do this, it's great, it's working now, but that is through thousands of hours of engineering and design and effort to build these systems to be resilient in the face of such activity. But I can confidently stand in front of you today and say that if Eston and I tried exactly the same thing that we tried back then, every single one of those transactions would easily make it into a block. No problem at all. I've done stress tests that have been 5 times more intense in terms of the number of transactions per second, even 1-2 years ago, and never had any problems at all. So really the growth in capability is quite amazing over the last several years. So yeah, just a bit of an anecdote.
There was a question at the back there. Was it Rita? Yeah.
Not so much a question, but we had a discussion just before you got on. Great presentation to the both of you. I was telling you about a country that I knew that was doing voting. I actually researched it, Sierra Leone, and they're the first country to do voting on the blockchain. Right. And I think it's Agora blockchain. I myself haven't heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how many millions of transactions that would have been?
No, I just briefly,
right.
I didn't delve into it yet.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think the important thing to say in any kind of voting is that whatever happens on the day of an election, if it's 20 million transactions like in Australia, or 200 million like you might have in America, or 1 billion like you might have somewhere like India, all of that has to happen over and above the regular daily traffic taking place on the blockchain. So, you know, if you're already in a situation where the blockchain is full, you know, it's impossible for you to actually do anything new. You need to be in a situation where no matter what the demand, that the network can satisfy that demand. So. All right, great.
Okay, thank you.
Got another question?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. As mentioned, there is a trilemma. Could you elaborate more on how security is ensured?
Well, all security is economic in nature. There is no security that just comes naturally from you doing things in a particular way. There's a cost, there's engineering that comes to provide that security. And really, what we're saying is that without the correct economic foundation for the scaling of the network, there will never be a scenario where the revenue generated by processing transactions will be sustainable enough to maintain the security of the network. And so security is economic. It's not something that you can just bake in and it's there forever.
From technical side, for example, double spending, safety, liveness, or finality, do you achieve the same level as Bitcoin?
I would say we achieve a much better safety than Bitcoin, because actually in Bitcoin, and this goes back to what I was saying before, that they've actually destroyed the protocol. In Bitcoin, they have actually engineered a system for double spending. It's called replace by fee. Has anyone ever used replace by fee? I know I used it once. And that is actually the network allowing you to double spend your coins. And I remember a story about a guy who was robbed in his house. They came into his house, threatened him with a metal pipe, told him to transfer all the Bitcoins, and he double spent them back to himself using RBF. So, I mean, that's the one case where I would say that's,
well for him.
that's a good thing to have. But the reality is on BSV, because like what James was saying, within 2 seconds, you can get a response from the network, from all of the major nodes, saying we've accepted your transaction, we've validated it, we've now put it into a block template, and we've already started to spend money doing proof of work on that, that's all you need. At that point, there is no ability for anybody to double spend that transaction. So within that 2-second period, you get all of the double spend certainty that you need.
Maybe just a comment for that. Like even if you, with James, when he said like you get just a comment, with that 99.99% security that you get using the callbacks from the miners, you also have coverage of that 0.001 because the person who is engaging and facilitating the double spend is making an attestation on chain of their collusion in allowing that transaction to occur. So you can then fall back to the legacy systems of the legal system to go, oh, we're going to pursue that person for colluding to pass a fraudulent transaction. So you've effectively, by working within the law, you do have 100% coverage because every record on there will exist in perpetuity.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you get
just,
the technical...
Just a little bit more. What if there are like transactions you submit to the network, but then this transaction could be verified at the same time by 2 nodes? There may be like this transaction immediately verified by 2 nodes at the same time, and means that this transaction could be logged into the blockchain twice.
That's why you wait the 2-second, because the 2-second coverage ensures that whichever of those got it first, because it's never precisely the same time, one of them will be picked between those two, and that will be the actual transaction that goes through. That's why that waiting period is important.
Well, just to add a bit of colour to that, some of the discussions that have been taking place among nodes is essentially what they're saying is that if they do detect a double spend, they'll just reject both.
Both, yes.
And because there's no certainty that the person submitting those transactions is acting with good intent, and so they are not beholden to you. You're paying them for a service, and just like any business, they can reject your request.
And they're legally bound by it too. I mean, if they knowingly know that they received 2 and one of them's fraudulent, then they're accountable as well. All miners are known. There are no real unknown miners because miners are such large infrastructure bodies that it's very hard to operate anonymously anyway.
Thank you.
I think that's it. No, there's one more on.
I guess for the ELAS guys, being in the development space, I noticed the new bit of software out that enables you to convert from Ethereum and Solidity over to Bitcoin SV. Have you noticed much or businesses approaching yourselves in regard to support with that? Obviously being able to bridge their technology over in a way which actually scales and becomes more cost effective, because that seems like some easy wins for people out there in the space that are developing to be able to kind of bridge on over and actually scale.
Sure. So just on that, so that's called the Transpiler project, and that's something that we'll actually be going into a bit of detail on tomorrow in the developers workshop. So for anybody who's coming tomorrow, we already do everything natively in Bitcoin script. So really most of the customers who come to us already know that they want to build it on Bitcoin. They don't have anything that they've already pre-configured for another blockchain. So it hasn't really come up for us, but I do know that the Transpiler has been getting some pretty serious interest among the development community. Like people are very interested to see, if I take this smart contract that I wrote, I plug it in, what happens on Bsv? And the results are pretty outstanding. Very low cost operation of those smart contracts compared to what they would pay on the Ethereum network. So yeah, you can essentially put Solidity straight into the builder, hit build, and it spits out a bunch of UTXOs that mirror the exact functionality of that smart contract, but running on Bsv. So it's a pretty amazing project.
Yeah, that's a tool, in case you hadn't heard of it, the Transpiler that enables most of the smart contracts that we call in the ecosystem have already been built on Ethereum. Ethereum was really one of the big drivers of smart contracts in the early days. Obviously, they have high gas fees, and so a lot of them are looking to port their applications to other blockchains. And Bsv has a tool that will enable the transpiling of a lot of those smart contracts. Not all of them, but quite a lot of them. If you have an Ethereum smart contract since Solidity, I'd recommend looking into it.
Can I just say, what about layer 2? Do you think that's going to solve everything on Ethereum?
I'm happy to grab that one. So, I mean, I think, so the way that layer 2s are being built in the crypto landscape is really not what I would call a second layer protocol. So if you work in like the internet, so think about TCP IP. Everybody has heard about TCP IP. That's how most of traffic across the internet is supported. But that's actually two protocols squashed together. It is Internet Protocol, and then inside Internet Protocol is Transmission Control Protocol. And so what's actually happening is Transmission Control Protocol information is being inserted inside the Internet Protocol packet. That's how protocols work. What second layer protocols in crypto typically ask you to do is to stake your funds into an output and never touch them again. And then they reissue you other tokens that represent these tokens that are held here on a completely different network, using completely different software, completely different consensus system, uses a different wallet. It's not compatible with anything that's over here. And it's really, actually, I think, dangerous. A lot of the hacks that are taking place are in that sort of bridge between the two networks. In Bsv, so I've spoken a couple of times already about the metanet. The metanet is what I would call a second order protocol, but it's actually a protocol that's inserted into the Bitcoin transaction. So you have a transaction that's in Bitcoin protocol, the base protocol, and then inside that transaction, a subset of the data is a metanet protocol packet that's instructing the person looking at it what this node needs to look like, how to unpack it, how to view it, what it points to.
So it doesn't affect the bottom layer in any way.
So the bottom layer needs to be flexible and extensible enough to build many protocols into that. So yeah, I would be very skeptical of any second layer that is actually just a different network and with its own crypto. You know, it's not really the way that you would approach a second layer building from a protocol perspective. And the only reason they're doing it that way is because the base layer protocol, where the asset they're trying to use is held, doesn't scale to allow them to do what they need to be able to do. So it's really a hack on top of another hack. And you know, it shouldn't have to happen that way. All right. Any further questions? Otherwise, I think that's our break for lunch.
Enjoy lunch.
Thank you, everyone. All right, we'll just wait another minute or so for everyone to come back inside. How good was that lamb? Tasty. Oh, I missed that one. I might have to go back. Okay. Give everyone another 30 seconds or so. That's what we need. A real shepherd of the people. All right, everyone, we might get started. Our next talk is from Paul Chiari of MetaStream, but Paul is also notable because he created WeatherSV, and I think a lot of people in the BSV community would remember a time just a couple of years ago where we became known as the weather blockchain because something like 95% of all transactions happening on BSV were logging weather data. But I think it speaks to the utility of the blockchain that something like WeatherSV could become so viral and so popular. I think they've logged something like in the order of 200 million weather readings from all around the world. And if you go to weathersv.app, for about $2, you can buy enough credit to sponsor a channel for something like 8 years. And what that $2 will pay for is hourly logging of all of the weather data from that place onto the blockchain, for sort of 8 years. And that costs about $2. So you can see how cheap this really is to use when things like that happen. And so those 95% of all transactions happening was just organic, people going to WeatherSV, signing up for channels. I myself sponsor about 50 channels. So that really means that on my own, I'm doing several thousand transactions on BSV every day. It costs so little, I don't even care. I don't even worry about it. It's fun. It's a public good. I think this weather information that we're logging on chain is actually a super important part of something greater. In 100 years' time, when we're arguing about why the seas rose up, we'll at least have some reliable data that tells us what the weather was today. So anyway, Paul couldn't make it here to be with us, so his talk is pre-recorded, but I'm going to let him speak for himself. So Paul Chiari from MetaStream and WeatherSV.
Hi all, and thanks for attending Brisbane's first Enterprise Blockchain Conference, sponsored by the Bitcoin Association and Leis Digital. My name is Paul Chiari, and I'd like to share with you some of our developments over the last couple of years and demonstrate how our suite of tools can easily be used to develop enterprise-scale blockchain solutions today.
Much of our journey to date with blockchain technology comes from a desire to solve problems of waste and inefficiency that plague many industries and supply chains. Sustainability starts by doing more with less. It is about reducing the waste and inefficiency in each step of a process. Industries such as agriculture directly interface with natural resources like land, energy and water. Waste in agricultural production and supply not only impacts the sustainability of the industry itself, but the very resources that it relies on. The unshackling of Bitcoin in 2018 was a significant step that gave us the confidence to start to build on ideas on how a public ledger can enhance the value and veracity of data. This led to the development of WeatherSV, which became very popular, and we soon had thousands of activities recording climate data to the Bitcoin SV network. WeatherSV has now recorded more than 140 million climate updates from around the globe to the Bitcoin SV. WeatherSV development is now focused on integrating private weather stations directly to the platform, allowing users to own and monetize their climate data contributed. MetaStream encapsulates much of the experience we gained in the building and scaling of the WeatherSV application. It is essentially a suite of tools for integrating blockchain technology into virtually any application device or data source. It removes much of the expense and complexity involved in developing blockchain solutions, as it requires no specialised skills to integrate the technology. At its core, it is a best-of-breed transaction building and broadcasting service, capable of supporting the most demanding applications. Anyone can set up an unlimited free testnet account today and get started on a blockchain project. The portal makes it easy to manage funds, API keys, UTXOs, addresses and requests. It offers customizable broadcast plans featuring different fee rates and service levels. Broadcast options currently include peer-to-peer or MAPI integration through Tail and GorillaPool. When ready to go live, we have monthly access plans available for the Bitcoin SV mainnet. MetaConnect describes interfaces we are building to enable connectivity to the platform. Firstly, our application programming interface, or API, developers to simply integrate applications with the BSV network. It facilitates posting of transaction data and reporting on the status of the broadcasts. Documentation for the interface is available through our client portal. Please reach out to us if your requirements extend beyond the scope of our API, as our transaction templating system now makes it easy for us to support virtually any valid transaction. Additionally, we have developed tools and processes for enabling IoT devices to realize the potential of blockchain integration. In combining these technologies, we are building what we dub the Ledger of Things. Markets for verifiable data and microtransaction payments for its collection and dissemination will greatly enhance the utility of the IoT industry. Utilizing well-known IoT integration and development platforms, such as the Things Network and Node-RED, we now have multiple IoT devices, including weather stations, with established BSV network connectivity. Thanks to the wonders of a pre-recorded presentation, I feel emboldened to attempt a not-so-live demonstration on how easy it is to build the foundation of a BSV application using Node-RED and MetaStream. So once you've created your free testnet account, you can log into our portal. The first thing there is to just add a client. It's quite simple, just give it a name and choose from some of the different fee rate options and whatnot, create that. Using individual clients or for individual projects and whatnot just allows you to account for them independently. Now if we go into this one, we can now manage the client itself, and first thing we need for any kind of application like this is to create an API key, and we just give that a description, and we require write access for an application like this, so we create that API key, get a copy of it. Now we'll now flick over to our Node-RED interface. So Node-RED is essentially, it's an IBM open source IoT development platform. It's very widely used due to its simple yet powerful flow-based programming interface, which you can see here. So essentially, you can choose from a whole range of pre-built nodes and custom nodes that are created for various functions. In this simple application example here, we use a pre-built test injector, which is essentially just emulating a data flow from a source such as an IoT device, which then moves into a couple of our customized nodes, being for the op return script and then passing the data MetaStream to be built and broadcast to the network as a transaction. And we have a little message handler over here for debugging and other purposes, similar purposes. So firstly, to inject our data into the application, we can look into here. We just set the payload. In this scenario, we're just using the name and place and date of the conference. Once that's done, that's set into there. We have a couple of variables with our MetaStream node. First is the endpoint and the API key, which we've just created and can now paste into there. Once that's done, we can save that. And we should be right to deploy our script now. So once deployed, we'll see down here the MetaStream node returns us with a broadcast ID. Now that broadcast ID, if we move back over to here into our portal, we should see in our requests, and there it is there, 392. So by looking at our requests, we can now see that we have a transaction ID returned from the Bsv testnet network. We can take a copy of that and move over to a blockchain explorer such as what's on chain, and be careful up here, just make sure that we're on to the right network, in this case the testnet network. We can paste our transaction ID into there, search on it. You can now see that it's got to the network, although it's still unconfirmed. We've got our op return output here, which we can see contains the message that we set in the payload of the injector in the Node-RED application. Metaproof is our implementation of simple payment verification. SPV will become an essential component for building many Bitcoin applications on a highly scalable Bitcoin protocol. As the transaction throughput increases, maintaining full modes will become increasingly unsustainable. SPV is a method to prove the existence and veracity of a transaction without having to keep full copies of all the necessary data. This is achieved through providing only the information needed to calculate a Merkle or hash proof for that transaction. These services are available to all applications utilizing the MetaStream platform. Our implementation follows the guidelines of the Bitcoin Technical Standards Committee to ensure compatibility with other applications and initiatives. In the diagram here, we have a typical Merkle tree structure that may represent a Bitcoin block with the root hash at the top of part of the block header. At the bottom of the tree, we can see transactions streaming onto the network. If I want to verify the existence and veracity of transaction number 4, then I can make this request from an SPV server. It will return the necessary hashes required to calculate the root hash and therefore prove the validity of transaction 4. The hashes returned by this query are highlighted in red. As I already knew the hash of my transaction number 4, I can now calculate the complete path back to the root hash. MetaStamp facilitates the use of a public blockchain in creating verifiable proof of data stamps. Publicly certifiable data trails have significant application in virtually every industry and are increasingly important in adhering to regulatory frameworks and mitigation of risk and liability. Building from our SPV implementation, we can now use a similar methodology to build data trees that are used to validate individual data points within much wider data sets. As a technologist that has followed the rise of Bitcoin over the years, I was dismayed when the Bitcoin core developers refused to increase the block size and deal with the congestion that hampered the network. When the Bitcoin network becomes congested, both the fee rates and delays in processing those transactions increase. This may have little impact on high-value, low-urgency transactions, but it makes any further use cases unsustainable. BTC has forgone any real utility other than as a store of value. The core developers' inability to scale the Bitcoin protocol without overlaying external scaling solutions eventuated in protocol forks and the restoration of the original scalable protocol in Bitcoin SV. Virtually free and instant transactions are important for many applications requiring data services, microtransactions, high volume throughput, or stable and low fees. As seen on the chart, BTC is continually maxed out with its 1 megabyte blocks, whereas Bsv blocks are averaging around the 100 megabyte mark, with capacity to spike above that as required. If technology is to survive and prosper, then it needs to solve problems and work reliably. Unfortunately, most projects in blockchain space do not meet this simple criteria. While private blockchains may solve some of these issues, they don't enhance transparency and trust that are central to the blockchain concept. The Bitcoin protocol has proved itself to be capable of all things that Ethereum and other cryptos were developed to address, such as smart contracts and tokens. If the predicted levels of scale can be achieved over the next couple of years, then I believe BSV is the best place to meet the demands of enterprise-scale applications built on blockchain technology.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation. We look forward to participating in tomorrow's developer workshop. But in the meantime, take care, and we hope to see you live in person at the next conference. Bye for now.
Always great to hear from Paul. Have a great time every time I've ever been up to Cairns. And normally, when I'm seeing Paul, I'm also seeing our next presenter, who is Daniel Keane from Predict Ecology. Daniel and Paul have collaborated on some pretty amazing stuff, which I'm sure he's going to be able to tell you a lot more about. But I think you've got something like 15 million trees on the blockchain. Yeah. Huge number.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. As Brendan introduced me, my name is Daniel Keane. I'm co-founder of an ecological consulting firm called Predict Ecology. So here's a photo of a mountain stream that I know in the wet tropics. And I'd like you to think about what's happening here. I'd like you to think about the natural information, the processes, the natural capital. So there's water purification, hydrological and geological processes. There's air purification, photosynthesis, carbon storage. Obviously there's biodiversity, plants, and presumably animals. It looks like a pretty fishy sort of a stream. Collectively, there's these ecosystem services, and it's natural capital that's based on interactions. This, however, is only one snapshot in time. Let's say that the exposure was a second. That would mean that there's 86,400 of these snapshots just in one day. And this is a high volume, high velocity, huge data set. So, human beings are very busy. They're always moving and always changing. And as a result, natural resources can be easily overlooked. They're around us every minute of every day. They're where we live. But because we're busy with our lives, it's easy not to notice these services until something's not right. Something changes. And this is called degradation. Degradation of land, water, air, biology, and culture. Now, these are a very simplified example. But for example, land. We have soil fertility issues. We have groundwater issues, rising of groundwater. We have salinity, desertification, and erosion. With water, we have water pollution. We have sedimentation and changes to hydrological flows. With air, obviously, we've got carbon. Everyone knows about that. But we also have things like ozone and PM10 and sulfur dioxide, and the list goes on. When it comes to biology, we have species extinctions, habitat fragmentation, and poaching of CITES-listed species. On the human front, we have loss of language, we have cultural site degradation, and unfortunately, we have loss and theft of First Nations intellectual property rights. So we're on the brink of a global precipice. Biodiversity collapse will change the ecosystem services that we have come to expect and that we take for granted. So how do we prevent this? Well, we start recording the complexity of the natural system. We value it, and we use this understanding of the complexity to improve our sustainability, and we do so using BSV. So we hear this sustainability word used to assist us in preventing this degradation, a way of being mindful of the interactions that we have. Now, I like to think of sustainability as an interaction between humans and the natural system that does not damage the value of the natural system, and by extension, an interaction that can be achieved in a regenerative, dynamic way, a self-sustaining interaction. But how? Well, we must first know what we are doing. And for that, we need empirical real-world data. So we've got to go and measure things. From that good data, we can then make models and inferences and track trends over time. This example is a machine learning dataset and model that I've produced to predict litter, grass, and tree cover, I think it was. Yeah, something to that effect. Okay, but good data is hard to find. I want data with volume, so I want lots of it. I want data with velocity. I want it to be current. I want data with variety. Ecology is complex, so let's not simplify this. I want veracity, because it's absolutely worthless if it's not accurate. I want value. I want to be able to do rigorous analysis. And if it's not accurate and not verifiable, how can I use it? I also want valid data. So I want data that's directed. What are you recording and why? So where's the good data? Well, there's open science, there's government data, there's university data, there's consultants' data, there's citizens' data, and there's First Nations data. There are many frameworks developed by many brilliant minds that are trying to solve sustainability while supporting development. One such is the United Nations Environmental Programme. Sorry. Now, I've been involved in sustainable development of natural resources and permitting for most of my life, most of my career. And one such tool that I've used is an ESIA, so an Environmental and Social Impact Assessment, or an EIS, an Environmental Impact Assessment. So in my state of Australia, Queensland, an EIS is defined as a rigorous assessment of the environmental, social and economic impacts. And it sort of goes a little like this. So a proponent will submit a draft terms of reference. That draft terms of reference will then go out to public. The public and the government will be able to comment on it and make alterations, extra little bits that they want to see in this impact assessment, this report. The EIS is then, the terms of reference is then finalised, and the EIS is then the terms of reference is publicly notified, and we can now start our EIS report. So an EIS provides a comprehensive description of the current environment, all potential environmental, social and economic impacts of that project, and the development of proposals to manage, mitigate or offset those potential impacts. So these impacts may be direct, indirect, or cumulative, and they may result from the construction, commissioning, operation or decommissioning of the project. Their scale, that is their relative magnitude, of the impact is determined by its intensity, duration, irreversibility and risks to the environment, society and the economy. So this process involves multiple public hold points and notifications to ensure that the public, the people who will inherit this project, who will inherit the legacy issues and whose land it is built upon, have their say. The proponent must evaluate and respond to all of these public and private and regulators' feedback. Finally, all things being done, the EIS is finalised and the project is permitted and is allowed to operate. But this rigorous data collection, this very expensive rigorous data collection, often ends up in silos. So here I have 3 theoretical projects. You can see the little silos with their data sets. To my knowledge, this data is not shared. The consultants doing EIS 1 for the dam may not even be aware that the farm, EIS 2, is even taking place, or that the data even exists. Surely some of this data can be shared. Could the data inform the cumulative impacts and residual impacts of these projects? Could the landholders be utilised to collect this information? Could this data be sold? And could the collector be paid for it? So this is how the progression of my data collection has happened. Back in the day, dark days, I used a digital or analogue collection method. Notepads, camera, GPS. I then progressed onto IoT devices, and it was still fairly centralised, sometimes a little bit distributed depending upon the camera or remote cameras or whatnot I was using. Now we're embarking on full IoT. Now these are additive and cumulative, and in an idealised scenario, this will allow the unsiloing of data. I need to collect it digitally first. So this is what my data looks like. SQL tables linked via a UUID. This allows the analysis, manipulation, and storage as flat files or vectors. It lends itself very well to long-term blockchain storage, validation, verification, and auditing. I use this method in various client-specific ways for the collection of all my consulting data. And here's some data I've loaded on chain. So this was a relatively small data set that I loaded in 2020, 2.4 gig, or about 11.2 million transactions. Back then, it cost about $960 to load those 11.2 million transactions. As of Monday, or last Monday, when I wrote this, it would have cost me $96. And I've now since been told that that price has floored even more. It would cost about in the order of $20. 11.2 million data points for $20. So, our techniques have also improved since then. Here's an example of some tree data that I loaded onto the Bsv blockchain and used varying H3 resolutions to calculate species diversity. What I've shown here is tree species diversity in the city of, I think it was Geelong? Yep. But this data could be so much more. It could be water rights. It could be water extraction values. It could be water quality. It could be mineral resources and licenses. It could be tons of wheat or rice produced in a field. This data can be layered. It can be interrelated, correlated, analysed as stacks. So since 2020, Paul Chiari, the fellow that just spoke before, has included some additional tools that I utilise. So here is the Merkle root of a 200 megabyte spatial data set. Each data point was encoded and hashed. These hashes were then combined into a Merkle tree as per the diagram, and the root of that Merkle tree was included into an op return of the transaction, which I've highlighted here in yellow. So with this technique, I'm able to prove the data's integrity. Using MetaStream's suite of tools, we have encoded it, hashed it, and created a root of the Merkle tree. And that went into the op return. It's on the blockchain. So say you want to use my data. You purchase it, I send it to you, and you verify it. This is blockchain. This is smart trust. You can encode it as previously described, then use the hash and the Merkle proof of the transaction, which you can see there on the left, to calculate the Merkle root. You can then verify the Leis proof for any random data point. Now, you may not want to check all of the data points. Some of our data sets can range up to 3 billion rows in lengths, but you could if you wanted to. In this example here, I've used the leaf proof for index 32, a bush food tree. And this can verify the authenticity, accuracy, and veracity of the data sets. So back to my example of an EIS, but this time with a little bit of blockchain integration. Same process, but firstly, the terms of reference are issued as a draft smart contract and then compiled as a distributed application. The public can then interact with this distributed application and provide traceable and auditable input. The final terms of reference can be issued as an application either on MetaNet or as a smart contract, and it can be authorised by various multi-party signatures. So we're talking about government departments, proponents, stakeholders. And this is where it gets cool. The technical studies, the field work, the data analysis, the risk assessments, the management plans, all of these really important, really valuable tools can be made traceable through blockchain from raw data through modelling and analysis to the derived management decisions with all the data on chain. So then the draft EIS is published. It can be published as a smart contract or a distributed application. The public can then respond to it, make comments, it can be peer reviewed, and all of this information can be traced, audited and tracked. Finally, the EIS report can be issued as a smart contract with multi-signature parties, various government agencies being able to then sign off on it. This data is now no longer in silos, but on a permissioned public-private contract, smart contract, MetaNet, DAG, there's various opportunities there. We'll work out what we can finally use. But it'll allow future consultants and proponents and the public to possibly access and audit and learn from this data. To take this a step further, the permitted project can now be regulated by a smart contract, with monitoring and management results being instantly auditable and verifiable. This will improve our environmental and ecological management. And this conceptual example of how blockchain might fit into a mature regulatory framework, such as an environmental impact assessment, it can be used for so much more in the natural resource management and sustainability stage, because we need to remember why we're doing this. So this is a little 10-second clip of one of our remote cameras. That's a red-legged paddymellon, and it's just doing its thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And I think one of the things I love about the work that Daniel does is it's extremely outside work. So he goes out, he gets wet, he gets dirty, he gets leeches and ticks and all kinds of things. And then he walks home and he's using some of the most advanced blockchain tools that we have available to us. And it's a fabulous example of how this works. So for our next presenter, we're going to hear from Michael Choi, who is CEO of Panda Angel, and he's going to tell us about My Fabula. So,
thanks very much, Brandon. The researchers have repeatedly said this. The worst time in the day to communicate, to persuade people is about 30 to 60 minutes after lunch, which is right about now. So if I can just ask you to stand up and say hello to the person next to you, say something really nice about them, even though if you have to lie. Just stretch your arms a bit, yep. That's okay, don't get carried away, you can sit down now. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, please be seated. Now you are wide awake. So can I start by acknowledging the organizer for today, Brandon and Ethel. Nothing happened by chance, and they put a lot of effort into this. So just put your hands together for Brandon and Ethel. I also want to acknowledge my business partner, Professor Robert Lee. He's the technical guy behind all this. I'm just the talker. All right, so you'll be hearing from Robert in a few minutes. I have a very funny habit. So I used to work for the government, and I get sent around the countryside and to do things for the government. And I get to go to small towns that I usually don't go to, all right? Regional Victoria, and particularly in Queensland. So there's one thing that I always want to do when I go to a small town after I've done my business, is to go and speak to the locals. So where would you go, say in regional Queensland, a small town of maybe 2,000, 4,000 people, where would you go to talk to the locals? The pubs. Absolutely the pub. There's two problems. Number one, I don't like to drink. And secondly, after a long day of work, the last things I want to do is to listen to other people's problem. There is another place, though, that I can go and speak to the local, where I don't have to drink. And they don't tell me the problems. Where would that be? I love to go to visit cemetery. Yes. Now, in your mind, a cemetery looks like this. No, I don't go there at night. I'm not that stupid, right? This is what a cemetery usually looks like. I love visiting cemetery because it tells you so much about the story in that place, about the people, about the town, about the culture. In the past, when you go to a cemetery, you see the big tombstone. Here lies Michael Choi. Well, hopefully not too soon. About where he was born, a little bit of history about him, and when he died, you know, missed by everybody else except his family. No, it's only joking. But in recent times, the tombstone from that size getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It become a little plaque. Measure 150 millimeters by about 200. And on it, it's your name, when you're born, when you're dead, and at best, missed by a couple of people that close to you. Am I correct? That's your life. That's your life. Summarized in less than 30 words, is that all there is to be told? Really? Really? I used to work a lot in the multicultural community. We have over 150 cultures in Queensland alone, 160 languages. And let me tell you, whether you are white or brown or blue or pink, whether you are a Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or atheist, whether you are heterosexual, bisexual, multisexual, I don't care who you are. Every single person has a story to tell. Am I right? Do you agree that every one of you has a story to tell? And it is so true. Let me ask you this question, though. Who is the best person to tell this story? Would that be your parent? Or perhaps they were when you were a little baby boy or baby girl. But at some point in time, you left home. Somebody else know you better. Maybe it's your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. When you get a bit older, maybe somebody else knows you better. Nobody knows you better than one person, and that person is yourself. You. You know yourself better. In fact, people only know you from the outside. You know about yourself inside, your feelings that you never told anybody. Maybe it's a part of your history that you don't dare to say to anybody. Maybe something happened to you when we were young. Maybe it's a trauma. Maybe something really happy you want to share, but there's no one there at the time that's worthy of your story. So what do we do? We want our story to be told. But who usually tell people about your story? Who usually does the telling? Anybody else but you. You go and Google yourself, right? Even if you're a famous person, you got about 2,000 hits. 1,999 of them would be by other people about you. Am I correct? Very rarely there's something that you can find about yourself who you told other people about you. And how is one's own story being told? My fabula is about to change all that. How is story being told? Number one, verbally, the story being passed from one generation to another sometime, or by one person to another verbally. I mean, we live in Australia, and one of the oldest culture in the world, 50,000 years. And the way they pass on their history is only through two things: verbal communication and artwork. So they communicate for 50,000 years about who they are, where they're from. The rainbow serpent story is passed on not in any written form, but by words from one generation to the next. So obviously we communicate verbally. Everybody understand that, so that we can tell our story verbally. We also tell our story by having it written down, or in these days you type it. Okay, that's another way to tell a story. In the past, we write diary. Most people write diaries in those days, but how many people actually write diary today? If you still write diary can you put up your hand? Do you still write diary? With 1, 2, 3, a very handful. Out of a room of so many people, only 2 or 3 write diaries. Good on you, actually. In recent years, other ways of telling your story, right? YouTube, Facebook, social media allows you not only tell your story in written form, but also in voice form and also in MP4, video forms. And there are some of the methodologies we can tell our own story. But there are problems. So what are the problems? It's a little bit hard to tell your story verbally when you're dead. Usually dead people don't communicate, well, most people don't. It's a bit hard. And secondly, even if you have a diary, unless you publish that diary, unless you distributed that diary widely and everybody want to buy your story for whatever reason that is, you have a very limited distributions. Only a handful of people have your diary. A famous diary was written 50, 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago. Only a few libraries in the world would have a copy of the diary. Over time, your own story, even in written form, disappear. How long do they last? 50 years, 100 years, 200 years? That's the time span on your diary, even if it's written down, let alone verbal. Third-party restriction, what's that? Who's going to stop you from writing your diary? Who's going to stop you from telling your story? Well, let me tell you an example, then you will know. Notice this man? Julian Assange. I'm not here to debate whether you agree with him releasing the information he took it from somebody else. I'm not here to do that. Some people are passionately believe that he shouldn't be doing that. He broke the law, and somebody passionately would defend him and said that he's done the right thing. It's called freedom of speech. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about what is the truth here, is that he's an Australian. For the last 10 years or so, a whole decade, he's been hounded by another government, not the government of his country. Another government hounded him 10 years and non-stop. He's about to be extradited to that country, and most people believe that he will die in the country. So he released information. He tells the story he wants to tell other people. For whatever reason he did that, he's being tried to stop by another person. My fabula is a Latin word meaning story, drama, tale, and even fables. My fabula, my story, telling it my way, is now made possible by Bsv Blockchain, decentralized storage, and AI. Let me explain. It enables, using my fabula, enables you to exhibit things that you want people to know. It could be just you're posting about being here at the blockchain conference today. That's okay. You could be a hidden writer. You've been writing about something. So you want somebody to actually share and read your writing. You could be a dancer. So you want to show people you actually know how to dance. Maybe you are a singer. Most people don't know I'm an engineer by trade and a project manager, but actually a singer, only in the bathroom. Only in the bathroom. And you have to buy good tickets to come and see that. Very exclusive. You could be a song composer. You compose songs. You want to put it up for exhibitions, for people to share and to enjoy. So our platform also provides security, of course, being blockchain. One of the cornerstone of the benefit of blockchain is to provide that security. I'm sure the Julian Assange would appreciate. We can time the release of your information. You, in fact, even though we know you as an accountant, in fact, you work for the CIA. And you got story to tell, man. Maybe you actually happen to know who killed JFK. You have data and information you want to share, but not when you're still around, because you get kicked around, chased around by another government for another 10 years. So you time the release of that document. Being blockchain again, proof of original is important. So I don't need to talk to you about that. Everyone around in this room understand the importance of that. Also, it's unalterable. It cannot be changed. All right? That's one of the benefits, again, of blockchain. So this is how our ecosystem works. Just a rough idea. The first stage of our ecosystem, obviously, is a user interface. So obviously, we're going to use a laptop. You can get access to our interface with a laptop, or you can use a mobile phone. That's pretty straightforward. And what you can upload images. You can upload text. You just written a poet. You can upload that. You can simply recording your voice. I just had a terrible argument with my daughter. I am so angry. Why couldn't he understand this? I've been looking after her for the last 24 years, and this is what she's done to me. Or, I just got this fantastic gift from my wife or from my girlfriend, hopefully not at the same time. You can just record that and just store that. Video, MP4, happy birthday, marriage, car accident. That too. Voice to text. Yeah, the technology is very simple now to just record and turn it into a text. So all that go into a metaverse. My Fabula metaverse, where we have 4 chambers, if I can use the word loosely, 4 chambers for your purpose. The first one is the auditorium. What is the auditorium for? For performance. So you have done a painting, or you have a poet, or you simply just want to share your experience. You went to a fantastic restaurant, and the waitress looked gorgeous. Not so much about the food. So you can share all that, all right? So you want people to know it's no different to Facebook, basically, all right? So this is where you share your stuff. You want people to see and read. The second thing is called a library. It's a fancy word for a storeroom. Things that you actually do not know how to deal with it yet, you put it there first, all right? You just simply upload it and put it there, okay? You don't have to physically upload, at least the blockchain code is being uploaded, okay? The third place is a vault. Things you put in there that nobody should look at until you're ready. It could be your will. It could be photographs of certain thing. It could be information of certain thing. It could be some private information about yourselves. Things that you want to tell people, you could not. Is in the vault. And you can time the release of that information. The last thing is a memorial hall. This is obviously after you are no longer living. That you want certain information from all the other chambers to be moved to the memorial hall so that people after you, if they're interested in you, it could be your relatives, could be your offspring, could be people, your grandchildren, all right? Things like in the metaverse will stay there for hundreds of years. So it is up to you what you want people to remember you by. This is our first stage. Our second stage is back-end integration with other social media. Okay, Facebook and Twitter, obviously they might not want to, but this is our intention. Okay. And our third stage is the most interesting one, which I'm not going to talk about yet until another 3 minutes later. This is our timeline, stage 1A, user interface. We're going to get it done by end of this year. The second stage stage 1B, the releasing of some NFT, purely to try to generate interest of our project. So stage 2 is linked with other social media application, is Q3 next year. And then stage 3A is the beta version of Virtual Me, and I'll talk about Virtual Me in a minute. Okay. So third stage. What is our third stage? Let me ask you a question. Think of a person who is no longer around, meaning he's already dead or she already dead. Name a person who is already dead that you would do almost anything to have a cup of coffee with. There has to be that person. It could be your mom, it could be your dad. If you are religious, you probably want to have a cup of coffee with Jesus or Apostle Paul. If you are John Lennon lover, you want to have a cup with John Lennon. Think of this person. What happened if you could? What happened if you could? Anyone who was born 10 years ago until the end time would have a digital footprint of their life. The first few years of their life, the digital footprints produced by their parents. The moment they have their own social media account, whatever account, or their homework digitally submitted to the school, they have a digital footprint. And if they live for 60, 70, 80, 100 years, if we gather all that information, and even after that person is gone, we can create a virtual me. Let me show you 2 news articles, and I've got another 2 minutes to finish. An AI-created song for deceased artists like Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse. They have created music from the information they gather from Amy Winehouse. Artificial intelligence recreate voice of the deceased singer. A Korean AI company studied the voice of a singer. He was dead 25 years ago. He was a hugely popular singer. So study his voice pattern enables them to create a song he's never sung before in his voice. It is possible. So in times to come, I would have AI able to help you to retain your story forever. Imagine your granddaughter able to ask you, say, "Grandmom, I'm struggling with this issue, what's your opinion?" And based on your digital footprint, AI should be able to say that, well, say for example, your granddaughter struggle with a life issue like euthanasia. Should I support euthanasia? Grandmom, what do you think? And it just happened that your grandmother has posted 3 articles about that, or talk about that in social media or whatever. So therefore, AI will be able to say that I totally object to that. And AI will be able to tell you that there is a 98% accuracy rate. Or something that your grandma's never talked about. But based on other things, they can analyze it and say, well, your grandma will probably return the question in the affirmative for about 62%. It is all doable. But two things needed. Number one, technology, and it's there. We are halfway there. But even if you have the technology, you need one thing. What is that? Precisely, the data. We are going to collect that data. The third stage is virtual me. My time is up. I want to finish with where I started. What's your story? Can your story be told on a plaque like that? Would you want your whole life to be summarized on a plaque like that? And I tell you no. Absolutely not. My fabula, your story, telling it your way forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. And I think that's another fantastic example of looking at how this technology can really be used to build things that we've never seen before and to enable us to engage with each other in much better ways. Our next speaker is Professor Dr. Robert Lee. He has a huge list of accomplishments. He's the chairman of the Australian Blockchain Metaverse Association. He's also the founder of a couple of different companies and a professor at the University of Southern Queensland, is it? Anyway, he's going to be talking about the Australian crypto mining industry future, which I'm very interested to hear more about.
Hello, everyone. Today, I just want to share some information about the crypto mining in Australia. This is some information of myself. I'm the founder of our International Digital Economic and Blockchain DBA project, and the founder of the 518 blockchain communities, and also is a YouTuber. Three topics. First is about the background of crypto mining. The second is about the green energy and government regulation. The third one is about the future of the crypto mining industry in Australia, in my opinion. So, about the background of crypto mining. So, when we're talking about crypto mining, many persons think about the mining machine, the computer, and some factory and the solar farm. But the mining, crypto mining is a process by which new digital coin are entered into the circulation. So mining is a performance. The first computer to find the solution to the problem, receive the next block of Bitcoin, and the process begin again. It is also very important to the infrastructure of the blockchain. We have this topic begin from the next year. You know, next year, China bans crypto mining. China government think the crypto mining is dangerous to his financial ecosystem. So there are many mining machines rebalanced to other countries, to the United States, to Europe, and to Australia. There are many of my students just have mining farms in China for many years and now have to transfer to other countries. This is very difficult. You know, they need to go to different culture, different country, and a different government system. This is very difficult, but from that time, I think I need to give some help to these students and help him set up the different mining farm, mining factories. This is change of a Bitcoin mining country share. You know, at the beginning, the China mainland, the yellow part is China mainland, and the pink part is the United States. The yellow part, you know, at the beginning, maybe nearly 75% of the share in China, because China can make most of her mining machines. And just began the 19 May 2021, and there are nearly 50% of the share. And at that time, nearly zero. Now, in China mainland, have nearly 25% of the mining share, all of the road. And in the United States, you can find the pink part. The pink part, yeah. This part. Nearly 37% of the shares in the United States. And the brown part is Russia. This part, blue one, is Iran. Where is Australia? We can't find it. But now, you know, also this is very important information about statistic of BTC, BCH, and BSV. You know, to the hash rate, nearly 99% of hash rate is BTC. And the network nodes, nearly 95, more than 95%. But to the transaction, 85% of the transaction is from BSV, and the block size, more than 99%. Sure, if you want to mining and get more transaction fees from the block, so you need to think about BSV mining. Yeah. So just last week, I just transferred to take some my mining machine to the Gorilla pool. You know, now in the BSV mining ecosystem, have two pools is very famous. One is Tau, but not public, and the Gorilla pool is a public pool. When we're talking about mining, other mining also is very popular. It's about the Doji and the LTC mining. Also, most of the machine is the ASIC machine. In the many years before, when we're talking about LTC, the other reward is Dogecoin. But now, because Dogecoin became more and more valuable, and we always say we mining Dogecoin and get a reward of LTC. Yeah. The second topic about green energy and government regulation. You know, to an ordinary miner, he just look for some green energy. You know, this is no question. No problem. They just looking for some green energy and want to do some innovation to get high profit. So this is a project in Europe, in Finland. We buy this property, and it can provide 100 megawatt electrical support. But very interesting is thermal energy is connected to the municipal pipe network. Only 28 meters from the mining factory to the municipal pipe network. So in the Finland, all years they need a heighting system. So this mining farm can get half of the fee from the municipal pipe network from the government, and only can use half of the fee to support the mining. So this is very interesting project. Also, you can find many miners just do some work to make the mining more easy, especially in Australia, in United States, because the home end price is very high, and so some miner just make the container. You know, they can make a container in the factory and take it to a worksite. The container is very different. Some is just for the ordinary miner machine, use air to air cooling, and some use liquid cooling, use water, use some other liquid. And this one is a container. It's divided into two parts. This part is a cooling system, liquid cooling system, and this part can take more than 200 mining machine. Yeah, the totally is a big containers. Also, we can find different use. Maybe you can find you can use a different container to take a different system. But now in Australia, we have set up 5 solar farm mining factories in South Australia, and all of our mining farm was use containers. Yeah. Also, you can find some interest in the cooling systems. For example, this one. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. For example, this one. This one also is a cooling system. This system is use water to get your cooling and take the heat to the swimming pool. So the swimming pool and the fishing industries. So the person can have a very nice swimming pool, and the miner can get Bitcoin at a lower price. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Of course, you can find some mining machine. It became more and more clever. This is from the golden shell. This is a quiet mining machine. Normally, the mining machine not very quiet. If you have tried, even you take it in the garage, it's very noisy. But this one is very quiet. And this also is a box. This box series also is very quiet. Did not use too much electrical power. But if you are boss, you need to pay attention. Maybe some of you business partner take it in your office. So it's very quiet. You can even take it in your home. You can not hear too much noise. Today, because in Queensland now it's winter, I just have take three box in my home. In the night time, it just gives some heat. Yeah. This is other one, very silent mining machine. Is from miner Bitcoin. I see for mining, 8 mining, 8 from 8 machine. This is water cooling mining machine. So how about Australian regulatory framework? So when the ordinary miner just want to find some country to set up his mining business, the first one is he want to find some country friendly and stable. After the 19 May 2021, there are many miners take his mining machine to Kazakhstan. But after half a year, the government changed the regulation. They need to change to other country. This is very difficult. Also, you can find in Iran have many mining machines, but the rules, government rules also changed very quickly. But in United States, in Europe, in Australia, you can find Australia is a relatively friendly and stable jurisdictions for blockchain and cryptocurrency. This is very important. Now, in Australia, we can talk about mining, we can talk about cryptocurrency. We also have big country and have solar energy, wind, water, and some other different kind of energies. So it's a very nice place for Bitcoin mining. We have set up 5 mining farms in the Australian. 3 is in the solar farm, and 2, one is beside a power station, and the other one is in old factories. Of course, I just want to find some mining factories in Queensland. I have looked this for half a year. I also nearly signed the contract with some power station, but because the electrical price is higher and higher very quickly, so I have to stop. But I think maybe after several months I can find some nice place to very near here. If I can set up a mining farm near Brisbane, I hope next maybe we can have some conference in Rockseat. Maybe very interesting. Yeah. So how about the future of crypto mining industries? I think in Australia, the advantage in energy sourcing and the insufficient crypto mining human resource. You know, in Australia, there are so many different kinds of energy. It's very easy to find it. So it's a very, we have big countries, did not have so many persons, so a very big market. But also, just for there did not have so many persons, so the crypto mining human resource is very limited. You know, some of my students just put the mining machines to a mining farm, and just the fence in the mining machine is damaged. I need to change it. He called for several times, and one person changed the fence, and he need to pay 1,000 Australian dollar. So it's you know, in China, if you change a fence, maybe only 10 Australian dollar. Yeah, so it's difficult. I just want to set up a network for provide and maintenance for mining machine and the mining farm. So crypto mining is valuable to Australian electrical grid balance. This is a very important point. I told many persons, told the government. Many people think crypto mining is a dirty business because it can use so many energies. But you know, if your country have many energy but did not have any person to use, it's also is a question. You know, we need to use energy when the energy is grown. So, if you set up a system using crypto mining, when the electrical power is used by the other industries, we can stop the crypto mining. And at other time, did not have so many person use, and did not have so many industries. We can use the mining, crypto mining, to keep a very stable use for the electrical power. So this is a very good balance for the grid. I have taught this point for many times. So this is two sides of one coin. Also, this is a very good industry. You know, some of my friends know I have been a permanent resident for Australia for many years. My family was here in Brisbane for nearly 10 years. But I need to fly to Hong Kong and Shanghai and back to Australia every year for many times because very difficult to find international business in Australia. And even I buy some coffee shop, I need to communication, take to some friend. I think it's difficult because my first language is Chinese. But you know, the mining is very international. You just don't need to work, local work, but I have an international market. Because the Bitcoin, you did not know to sell to Brandon, to Michael. You just sell it in the exchange very quickly. So you get it, you get your mining machine, you mine, you work hard, and you get the Bitcoin, get the Bsv, and you sell it. It's okay. So it's a very local work and very international market. I think this is a very good business in Australia. We have do so much things. We have set up the blockchain metaverse association to promotion the crypto mining in Australia. We also set up a global crypto mining course for half a year. Leis also is a teacher of our of mining course. We have finished nearly 400 students all over roads in different countries. I think maybe 50 students in Australia. And we also participate in establishment of a global mining operation and maintenance network. I just want to help the miner in different countries can maintain his mining machine. We also have some book about the blockchain, about the digital economic, about the miner. But in Chinese, I hope this year we can have a book in English. Every week we have a blockchain meetup. Every Friday, from the Australian time is 4 o'clock p.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. We have a blockchain meetup now online. We also, because I'm a YouTuber, I also have a blockchain diary. Yeah, Michael said diary. Maybe this is my footprint. Yeah, I also have a blockchain diary for nearly 4 years. Yeah, nearly 4 years. You know, from last time, the Bitcoin have a high price. Yeah. If you're interested, you can follow my my YouTuber. Yeah, blockchain Metaverse. This is one of my patents about the blockchain project evolution system. If some friend asks you to invest in some project you did not know very clear, you can use this patent. You know, in this system totally have 1,000 points. If your project can get more than 500 points, that's a good project. If your project only get maybe 300 points, it's not a good one. If you cannot know how to take a point for your project, that means you did not know this project. So, do not forget where you start and why you start the whole journey. With you keep your eyes into the future for big picture and fill your heart with your love and courage. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Robert. And it's great to see that there is such a vibrant crypto mining industry here in Australia. I actually had no idea that there were such large-scale mining farms, and especially it's amazing to see that they are tapping into the green energy. You know, we always hear about proof of works energy consumption being a huge concern, but I think what we see around the world is a stack of evidence that miners will almost always prefer the green, low-cost energy, the unreliable sources that they can grab onto for extremely low rates at the right time. But anyway, we are moving on to our final speaker of today. Leis Lee has been working with me at the Bitcoin Association for about 3 years now. We don't have a whole lot of crossover, but this whole convention came about due to a poolside meeting at the Dubai hotel after a recent conference. She and I got talking and she told me she was coming here. And we decided to have a meetup. And that meetup turned into a convention. And then that convention turned into a 2-day event with a developers workshop and all of you here today. So I want to thank Leis for being the inspiration for this event and introduce her to the stage to talk about building on a scalable blockchain.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. And it's really an honor to co-organize this event with Leis, with Brandon, Ethel, and a lot of friends who's helping with this event, making this happen. Most of you may not know that we started this idea maybe only 2.5 weeks ago. I know it's impossible to organize a conference in Australia within such a short period. So it's really nice to meet all of you here. And also, I know some of you on Twitter, on social media, and finally be able to meet you in person. So again, I'm really happy to be standing here and meet all of you. So I'm okay. For those who may not know me, just allow me to give a brief introduction of myself. I'm Leis Lee. I am mostly based in China, Shanghai, and Beijing. And I'm the CEO of Keane, which is a Shanghai-based blockchain consulting firm. And I'm also head of Bsv APAC Hub for Bitcoin Association. And as Brendan said, we too work for the association for over 3 years. But I think it's time for us to like promote Bsv technology and also expand our influence in this country, starting from now. For the Bitcoin Association for Bsv, it's a Switzerland-based non-profit association. So you can regard it as like an industrial association or an organization. We are dedicated to advanced Bsv technology. So every year, every day, we just talk to people, companies, government officers, and even like academia institutes to let them understand the power of Bitcoin technology. And also, as a fully regulated nonprofit organization based in Switzerland, we are also trying to build a regulation-friendly ecosystem. So Bitcoin is not for those anti-government people or anarchists, right? So we want to attract real business onto Bsv blockchain. We want to like implement blockchain technology to the real business use case, that we have to build a regulation-friendly ecosystem. So our organization also talks to government people, also talks to those agencies who's trying to build the new regulation on the blockchain industry, or you can also call it like crypto industry, so that we don't want people to use Bsv blockchain to do bad things, to do illegal things. Also, as a global association, we also initiate a lot of like events or projects in different regions. Let's say like this kind of events, I counted for even in July in this month, my co-workers within with the association, we participated or organized at least 10 conferences and summits globally. So that's how we promote Bsv in the correct way. We talk to people with business. We talk to different industries. So after a long day of conferences, you've already heard a lot of people talking about their projects, business ideas on Bsv blockchain. So you might already started to realize why or understand why people chose Bsv blockchain. But for me, I want to show you some statistics, some real numbers in the real world that show you why they chose this, the only scalable blockchain in this world. This slide, we actually designed this slide early last year. I considered whether I should change some numbers, but I just decided to leave it there because I want to show you. We leave the last circle. Let's see those in the front. We didn't even put BTC in this graph. See, Bsv blockchain has already achieved TPS of 5,124. That means on Bsv blockchain, the peak, on Bsv blockchain, I mean the main net, the peak TPS has reached over 5,000 transactions per second. That's almost hundreds of times of Ethereum, and also higher than Hyperledger, and a little lower than Visa. But last year, we hoped that we could achieve 50,000 TPS by the end of 2021, but you've seen that we were already behind our schedule. However, this slide was also designed last year, and we make a make a very simple calculation based on the assumption that if we want to process 3.2 million transactions per day, how long it will take for different blockchain networks to process all these transactions. For Bitcoin Core, which is BTC, that it might take 44 days to fully process all these transactions. For Ethereum, it will take 2.5 days. And our assumption last year for Bsv Blockchain, it may take 30 minutes, maybe 3 blocks. But actually for this year, the Bsv Blockchain, if we have like 3 million transactions in the mempool, we can process all of them within 1 block or at most 2 blocks. So as you can see, even though we are a little behind of the TPS, the throughput capacity, we actually have the capacity, but we just don't have that many transactions on the network now. That's why I'm shouting out to invite you to build your blockchain projects on Bsv Blockchain, because we already have the capacity to process all of your transactions within a very short period, but you can do everything on this network. So besides the throughput capacity, I also want you to imagine that if you want to build your blockchain projects, you want to build your applications on the real blockchain, that you have to pay a transaction fee for every transaction. If the transaction fee is high, can your project afford that for the real use? Can your users afford that to every time they just sending messages or put data on your applications, they have to pay the amount of transaction fee? Can your users or your applications can afford that in the long term? But on Bsv, we can even transact even 1 cent in a transaction. And the transaction fee is much lower than even 1 cent. Let me show you the statistics of yesterday. Yes, it's just I finished this slide yesterday. So all this data on the first line is from midday yesterday and 24 hours before that. So on Bsv mainnet, the transactions of the 24 hours is almost 1.8 million. So the TPS, average TPS during the day is 20 transactions per second. And the data size, I mean, the total block size of the day is 17 gigabytes, and average block size is 112 megabytes per block. And the average transaction fee is 0.00016 US dollar. And I also know some of these transactions, maybe 20% of the transactions, also like some NFT minting or some smart contract. So for like easy, like those simple hash transactions or payment transactions, you can even realize that with a much lower cost than $0.00016. And also at the bottom, I want to show you, that's also the statistics before yesterday. This part is the total size of the blockchain. So as you can see, After 13 years of the network, Bsv Blockchain has overall 5,102 gigabytes, which is 5 terabytes. And the BTC and Ethereum is almost half of the terabytes. If you want to, we know we should use the blockchain network as a global ledger. We need to put data on the blockchain. So if you want to use a useful blockchain, that you should choose the blockchain that can process or has a bigger size for that. So people may wonder why only Bitcoin SV's blockchain can scale. I think there are many reasons for that, but I just list 3 of them that are very fundamental reasons for that. First, Bitcoin is using the consensus of proof of work. Even though right now there are still many blockchains that using different consensus, like proof of stake or proof of whatever stake, but proof of work is the key component that makes blockchain can really scale. Because using proof of work, everyone, not only miners, not only business, I mean everyone, even for those people who has nothing to do with the blockchain, everyone can just do some simple hash functions and validate their transactions, validate the data. Everyone can do that. Just because of this transparency, this simplicity, that makes Bitcoin blockchain, Bitcoin technology is the most secure system in this world. And the second one, Bitcoin Association, as the developer and owner of the Bsv Node software, we have optimized our Node software for a very long time. Such as last year, we have released upgrades for 8 times. And this year, we also released a latest version of our Node software that has adding many new features, such as I remember this morning we have a guest from the university ask about double spending issues. Actually, in our Node software, we have already implemented double spending alarm and detection functions in that, which is also described in the Bitcoin white paper. And last, someone has also introduced the light client and SPV mechanism, which is also a key component for the scalability of Bitcoin. Now I would like to introduce our Bitcoin SV infrastructure website, where if you are a miner or you run business on Bsv blockchain, please go to our website, which is bitcoinsv.io, and you can get every technical documents on that website. We have Node software for miners, and we also recently we also released our light client toolbox for non-miners. It's still in a very early stage, but we would like to educate the industry that for wallets, exchanges, or other business, if you are not miner, you don't have to run a full node, and still can allow your users or yourself to validate the transaction that is related to you. And we've got a lot of documents on this website. And the SPV light client toolbox is just what I mentioned earlier, that can allow service providers and users of Bitcoin network to operate more efficiently and leverage the simple payment verification model, which is also mentioned in the Bitcoin white paper. So with this powerful infrastructure tool softwares, we believe that we can help companies, we can help business that can easily using Bsv blockchain as a data reference. And finally, this is a project that Brandon has been involved for many years, and we for us, we also use this academy and use the curriculum and establishing some collaborations with Chinese universities and also some universities in the Europe and Middle East. So we've already have launched several courses, and there will be 1 or 2 new courses this year. And we are looking forward to collaborate with some Australian academia or universities here, and we've already have this educational content, and we believe this can help the young people, help those new people who just joined this industry to have a correct and better understanding of blockchain technology. So that's all for today, and it's actually my 3rd time to be here in Australia. So the last time I've traveled here was around 7 years ago. So this time I saw Brisbane change a lot, but not that lot. Changed a lot. Some new buildings, and I see the city is expanding. It's like Bsv ecosystem. We need to building. We cannot achieve a lot maybe within 1 day or 1 year, but we just keep building, and we need builders. And as long as we insist in the right land, right? We put our resources, we put our hard work in the right place, and we'll see new buildings on this place. So welcome to Bsv ecosystem. Thank you.
All right. So now we have a little bit of time set aside for any further Q&A that anyone might have, and please feel free to ask questions of myself or any of the previous speakers. If there's any other burning questions that you have. Anyone? Yes.
Daniel, I just wanted to know if you have encountered any pushback regarding the sharing of data between proponents, or if that was ever a part of it, and how you've overcome that. I know that particular government projects, as well as mining projects, are often very private, that data.
Okay, we're on. Yes, short answer. Yes, there is pushback. Actually, from some unexpected sources. Farmers are the ones who push back the hardest currently. On that, if it's incentivized to share it, and it can be shared in a public-private way, by that I mean you can see that there is data there, you can read metadata about it, you can't have access to the actual figures, for example, you have to pay for that. That does ease the data sharing appetite. So basically, user pays. Yep.
I was just wondering if it was to go forward, possibly some ways to overcome that real protectionist of the actual, those data sources. But you're saying mostly it's metadata, you can pay for it. So it's going to take time for that to be overcome.
Yeah, I think education will also assist in that. Data's become ubiquitous. We're actively harvested for data as individuals, albeit personal data or like the sort of information that we record with our mobile devices, and we give that away for free. There's a saying in software development that if the product is free, then you are the product. When you're generating data that is useful and usable, I see it being perfectly reasonable to charge a fee for that. Pretty well, that's what scientists and data miners do for a living. Yeah. So to sort of try and wrap that back up in a nice, neat way, I think education is key, and that acceptance that we do live in a data-driven economy system at the moment. So we may as well try and take advantage of it as individuals.
Thank you.
Great. Any other last questions? Todd? Oh, and then another one here afterwards.
A question for Robert Lee.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so if we were to move into a paradigm where there was, say, you know, 1 billion to 1 trillion transactions a day occurring on chain, to what extent do you think Bitcoin miners would be substantially invested in R&D of alternative energy sources? That to what extent do you see it driving a push for delivering cheaper mechanisms for providing energy, and what benefits would that have to society in large?
You know, the energy is the biggest questions. If the first one, you find the lower price energy, and then begin your mining. Of course, you had many things need to do for you. You need to get a very nice machine, and when you have you can maintain the running of the mining farm. But even go to here, you get the Bitcoin on BSV. You need to know which time you to share it. So if you know now is a bear time. In this time, maybe you can just get the Bitcoin, take it, did not sell so much, and at the other time, maybe after 2 years, you will get a lot of money. So it's a very interesting thing. Yeah, if you like it, other person also, other friend also like it. Maybe we can have some meeting together. We can talk about more details about what we can do in mining. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yes, we've got one down the front here for David.
Yeah, just a couple of comments from my fabula. I thought that was really great, but where I thought it was going was more of a genealogy type thing where, you know, currently I can explore some aspects of my ancestry by looking at genes and stuff, but it'd be really cool to see that incorporated into what you're doing here. I would love to see, you know, more of my grandmother's story and that sort of stuff. And be able to look into my family's history and, you know, what commonalities did they have, what common interests and that sort of thing.
Yeah, thanks for your comment. We haven't looked at genealogy part yet, but I'm actually starting to look at tribal history. So it's designed for individual. Of course, you're telling your own story. It doesn't mean that your clan can't tell a story and interlink together. Particularly with culture such as our indigenous people, they have clan, so they can all link together, so they can tell the story rather than just verbally, but they have a traceable record of what they said to each other. Isn't that fantastic? Because I mean, there's an old Chinese saying that if you tell same thing to 10 person down the road, by the time you get to the 10th person, and 20% of the content is probably changed. And we do emphasize on different things, different personality as well. So that will enable them to start tracing and tracking their own verbal story as well. Yeah, but thanks for that suggestion. I think that's worth looking into.
Yeah, absolutely. The other one I had was you were talking about AI and how AI can help, you know, bring some of that stuff to life. The other thing you might want to check out is NERF, so neural radiance fields. So even from single or just a few images, we can actually bring people to life in 3D.
I'd love to talk to you after
Go
this.
and check it out.
Thank you.
Great. Oh, come on, I know there's at least one more question out there. Yes, down the back.
Actually, it's not so much a question, but a comment. Yeah, I really enjoyed your presentation, and with enough captured data, I even say to my kids, you know, when I'm gone, I'm actually going to be a hologram. There's going to be enough data on me that I'm going to be a hologram in your kitchen, and when you have a problem, I'm going to sit there and be able to talk to you through that issue. You know, with holograms, I remember seeing Elvis as a hologram. I think right here, several years ago, they've got Whitney as a hologram, and then they're doing, using AI, they're doing the singer Selena as well, so she'll be able to walk around amongst her family, because, you know, she was taken at a very young age, but using all that technology, it's going to be amazing what our kids are going to be able to experience. But kudos to you in that project. Yeah, well done.
I just want to make a comment because if people are using it, I want to encourage people to do one thing that we don't usually do in the Western culture. I was brought up in the Eastern culture for 16 years and I migrated here. There's one thing we don't do well in the Western culture is talk to ourselves and talk about ourselves. I like to actually one day might be speaking to Helen. Helen's a psychologist. So I actually want to know that if I start talking to myself and about myself, does it actually help me? I do that. I think it actually helped me to understand me a bit better by talking about myself to myself. And we in the Western culture don't do that. And I think we need to, I mean, we think it's crazy you talking to yourself, right? I mean, it's not. It is not. We don't spend enough time by ourselves, thinking about ourselves and talking to ourselves. So with my Fabula, I want to encourage people to actually start talking to yourself. When we do that, you talk about your feeling. I'm really angry today. Robert actually upset me. I mean, only joking. Robert is a great partner and great friend. So if something happened today, I just want to talk to myself, and it's recorded. And it forms a digital profile of not just about historical record of what I said and written, but about how I felt. And that's important, I think.
So who thought you were going to be getting psychology, philosophy? That's right. Yes, very much so.
Yeah, Brendan, I was just going to say thank you to yourself and Liz for organising this event here. Like, I've been in the crypto space for quite some time and having navigated the whole hash war and whatnot, just seeing what Bitcoin SV and the Bitcoin Association are doing right now for the community and business alike. It's amazing to see, and yeah, just love seeing innovation happening here in Australia and Brisbane and whatnot. So yeah, thanks for organising.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, I'd just like to thank the host of businesses that we were able to reach out to, who all jumped into action and got here and prepared talks. And you know, 2 weeks is not long enough to arrange a conference, and yet we did it. Leis set us a challenge, and I want to thank Ethel. Stand up, please, Ethel. She's really the main person doing everything here. I'm just show up on the day, but no, it's been a fabulous experience. I think we're going to do this every year. With the developers workshop tomorrow, I'm quite excited to get some of the local development talent onto the tools. Some of the tools that we will be testing are built here in Queensland. So, you know, I'm very proud that we can present such a great set of companies and utilities to the industry here in Brisbane, and I really look forward to you guys loving what you see. Yeah, so thank you very much. I think that's about it from me. There's going to be a networking function at 4 p.m. Outside. We're going to have a bit of a drinks package, so in about 10 or 12 minutes. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate you coming today. Yeah, so someone has just suggested that we take a group photo, so I would love it if you could all come up to the front and